Something's in Hello, you're listening to the Fandom Boys podcast, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Vengeance, or Batman, or Shadows, or whatever you might want to call me.
Master Wayne?
What is it, Alfred?
I'm sorry to bother you, sir, but I think you might want to see this. You think they deserve this, huh, Batman?
God damn it, this Joker's a pain in the ass. Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry, but I'll have to leave. Till then, you can listen to the Fandom Boys discuss about how awesome my movie is. Alfred, start the Batmobile!
I'm Sanvid Vaidya.
And I'm Ashmit Kumar.
And you're listening to us, the Meta Fandom Boys.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how awesome was that Batman voiceover intro, huh, ladies and gentlemen?
But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 2 of the Meta Fandom Boys podcast. I'm your host, Sanvid Vaidya, joined by my co-host, Ashmit Kumar.
Hello, guys.
If you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, or even Amazon Music for that fact, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. And if you like what you're listening, quick reminder, this is a combined episode. We're going to discuss the Batman and Moon Knight episode 1 and 2. You might have already read that in the title. But in case you want to follow us on Instagram or any other social media, you can follow us on Meta Fandom Boys on Twitter and on Instagram. And you can follow me, Sanvid, at Sanvid__Vaidya and Ashmit at
Ashmit Kumar 001.
So you read the title. Let's just get into it. I've had the opportunity to go watch the Batman twice. The first time I watched it was in an IMAX theater. And let me tell you, IMAX is the best way to watch this movie and to truly experience this movie in its true and best format. But even if you didn't get to watch it, at least you got to watch the movie in the first place. It's a masterpiece. We are just going to go straight into it. For those of you who still haven't had the opportunity to go watch the Batman, spoilers ahead for you, and you can just do yourself a favor and go to your nearest theater and watch it, because I guess it's still running in theaters.
As of today, literally today, April 18th, the Batman is now officially available to stream on HBO Max for HBO Max subscribers. Unfortunately, HBO Max hasn't arrived in India yet, so you can either watch it in your nearest theater while it's still running, or rent or purchase the movie to stream on the Book My Show streaming app.
So do yourself a favor and go watch this masterpiece, because it's worth it. It's worth the money. It's 100% worth the money. So Amen. So let's go right into the spoilers. Robert frickin' Pattinson, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, this guy, my God.
A decade ago, girls were all swooning over him, and right now we all boys are. Like, how the times have changed.
Twilight Boy just upgraded to Batman. But wow.
Even truly, Batman and Catwoman's love story is better than that.
It was amazing. Zoe Kravitz, wow. Wow. Absolutely just wow. I cannot stress this enough. This movie is hardcore. It's grounded in reality. You get to see the corruption of Gotham. You get to see how you can't trust any single person in Gotham, and Gordon is the only person who Batman trusts. It's amazing. You get to see this city like erupting. You get to realize that the Riddler was trying to expose the city because every single person in this town is dirty.
That's the thing about this movie as well. I felt that Gotham City in itself was a character in this movie.
Exactly.
The ambience, the way that everything was being shown. I just felt like, yeah.
This is exactly how Gotham is supposed to be portrayed in its best form. And the thing is, here's the thing. To make another Batman movie when there have been at least, if I'm not wrong, 10 to 12 Batman movies with Michael Keaton, George Clooney, Christian Bale, and even Ben Affleck, to recreate an iconic character and still make it unique is a really tough task. To make a new Batman film and make audiences fall in love with a completely new iteration of this character is tough. And yet again, Matt Reeves truly showed that if you go through the very basic roots of Batman, you can show why he is what he is. And I really love the idea that Robert Pattinson, he feels more confident when he's inside the Batman mask, and he feels more scared and more vulnerable when he's Bruce Wayne, which means Bruce Wayne is his mask and Batman is his true self. And I think that's probably the
Wouldn't you say true for like all the other Batman actors as well, who have portrayed him over the past few years?
In Christian Bale, I would say yes. For Ben Affleck did a better job as Bruce Wayne. I'll say this. He was probably not a good Batman in my opinion, but he was a great Bruce Wayne. He was amazing.
Maybe it was because we got a different side. We got to see an older Bruce Wayne. All the other actors who we have seen there now, they have played like a younger version of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Zack Snyder also said that his version of Batman is an older 45-year-old guy who's gone through almost all the basic comic book villains of Batman, so much so that there was even a reference which said that Ben Affleck's Batman saw his Robin die in front of him and he was killed by Jared Leto's Joker. That was, I think, one of the biggest things. I was like, oh my God, this is a really mature Batman who's seen probably the worst of Gotham. And I think that's why every Batman iteration is really different, because some Batman is in his early stages, some are in his older stages. Robert Pattinson is in very early stages. Like this guy, he's very new to the game. It's his year 2. He's not even a really good detective. He's able to figure out the clues. He's able to figure out the answers, but he's still not quite there yet. And he prefers being Batman more than he prefers being Bruce Wayne. And I think that this is why he's 95% of the time he's wearing the mask. There's only one small scene of Bruce Wayne. That was the funeral scene. Apart from that, the whole movie was him in the mask. So again, a completely new side of Batman. I hope they explore the Bruce Wayne side of it a little more in the sequel. But I love the Riddler. Let's talk about the Riddler. Paul Dano, ladies and gentlemen, this guy, he gave me goosebumps, fam. This guy was scary. He was genuinely scary. Like, he literally murdered the mayor in like the first 5 minutes. Wow. Wow. Like,
you wanna show a character, you wanna show an extreme antagonist, you're gonna have to start big.
Yeah, exactly. You have to start big. And the thing is, people are, especially every Batman movie, like the Joker is probably the most famous and the most iconic villain, but the Batman rogues gallery is huge. Like, there are so many villains that have still not been portrayed in live action even once. One of them is Mr. Freeze, and the second is the Coat of Owls. Like, these two characters are villains who have never been portrayed in any live action film. People always use the Joker or the Riddler, but I think this is the best version of Riddler I've ever seen on screen, ever. The last time we saw that was in, I think, Michael Keaton's film where Jim Carrey played the Riddler. That was a little funny. I don't know, was it Jim? Yeah, it was Jim Carrey. Yeah, it was Jim Carrey.
Was it George Clooney?
Yeah, I think that was, it was with George Clooney, not Michael Keaton.
Yeah.
But I love the Gotham City. I think they filmed the parts of Gotham in Glasgow and Chicago. They even filmed for The Dark Knight in Chicago. So I believe that's a great background for Gotham City. Again, since it's year 2, we realize Gordon trusts Batman and Batman trusts Gordon. And Gordon realizes that the whole city is dirty and the only person he can trust is Batman. And I really like that idea that Gordon is scared about his own GCPD staff. Every single person inside the GCPD is also in some way or the other working for Falcone or in some way corrupt. And I think that is really dark, because you get to see that.
And this is a Gordon before he became commissioner. Like, we already saw that in the Christian Bale series also. Like, he became commissioner only in the second movie. But seeing him here also, this is also like an earlier version of Gordon.
Yeah, this is Lieutenant Gordon, not Commissioner Gordon. Yeah.
Right.
This is Lieutenant Gordon. Andy Serkis as Alfred. My God. Again, brilliant performance. I love how the Batcave was inside a train station, abandoned underground train station. You know, you get to see that there is a prototype of the Batmobile with the V8 muscle engine. And the opening of the movie is him monologuing. He's monologuing everything that he's written about the city, everything that he's noticed about the city in its shadows. I love that he
Right.
incorporated himself as the shadows. Like when you see that bat signal in the sky, it's not a signal, it's a warning. I really love that Batman has been established in this entire city, but people don't trust him. People still don't trust him. And that changes at the very end of the movie when the whole city is flooded because of the Riddler. But coming back to the start of the movie, obviously the mayor is dead. James Gordon calls Batman in the entire crime scene. And I love that one policeman stops him and says, do you really want this guy in our crime scene? Because again, everyone considers him
because
a
this is basically like showing that stage where he was in his early vigilantism. If you remember the starting, the scene before this, which you're referencing, the train station fight with the other goons, even the person who Batman saved, even he was scared of him. This brings me back to actually, this brings me back to the Arkham games which I played. So I got to know about Batman from the Arkham games which I played. And the third game in that series, Arkham Origins, it's basically like a prequel to all the games. And I think that this was a reference from there, where all the civilians which Batman saved, all of them were scared of him because they didn't know who he was. They also thought that he was maybe some kind of thug, a goon. It took time for Batman to gain the trust of the people. And I think by the end of this movie, he was able to do that.
Yeah, he was able to do that, truly. And I love how the Riddler tapes every single one of his victims and writes no more lies. It's like he's trying to expose the city one by one. But because, again, I love that Batman thinks that his city can be saved. He thinks that his city is not corrupt, but it's darker than he thinks. And I love that mentality that he thinks he can save the city. But in actual reality,
that's Bruce Wayne for you.
Yeah, that's Bruce Wayne for you.
And he gets that realization actually in the end. His whole reason for vigilantism, even in the beginning we see, it's just revenge. In the end, he finds his purpose. He's not looking just for revenge. He's looking to be a symbol.
He's looking to be a symbol. I really love that. And I love that the commissioner of the original commissioner, while Gordon is the lieutenant right now, Pete Savage was the commissioner. And I love how he keeps telling Gordon that you really trust this guy? This guy's a vigilante. What if he's working with the Riddler? And you realize that.
So when I actually saw the Batman trailer, I tried to find out like who the actor was. And I felt like I had seen him before. I had actually seen him in the HBO TV series Chernobyl. And when I watched he was one of the miners. And when I watched the movie, I found that many of the actors in Batman were actually in Chernobyl. The commissioner, one of the officers, and even the actor who plays Joker, he was also in Chernobyl. But we'll get to the Joker part later.
Barry Keoghan. Oh yeah. Okay. So again, the second part, when Batman and Gordon at the crime scene, there's a deciphering code which Alfred and Bruce both figure out when they reach his Batcave. And you realize that if you decipher the code, it says thumb drive. And then they go to Mitchell's car park and they find a pen drive with all kinds of photos. It's like the Riddler was giving all the clues to the Batman so that Batman can help the Riddler in exposing the city. But Batman didn't know that he was inadvertently helping the Riddler. And I think that's what makes the Riddler such a smart villain, an underused villain, and so much more potential rather than compared to the Joker, in my opinion. So when you realize that there's a
that's one of the similarities between the Riddler and Joker, if you find.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, we talk about Mayor. We see him with a woman, Annika Kostelov, at the iceberg launch. Again, the iceberg launch sequence, like it's a club at the very bottom of Gotham. It's like the Penguin owns the club, and there is a club inside the club called 44 Below. When Catwoman is introduced during the interrogation scene between the Penguin and Batman, you get to see that she recognizes the girl in the photos, and she gives that look to the Batman that where did you find these photos? And that's when Batman realizes that there is a connection between the girl in the photos and Selina Kyle. And that's when he follows her and sees her through the window and realizes that they both are connected to the whole situation in Gotham. Again, one twist I really loved was that Falcone was Catwoman's father. That was something they did it completely for this movie. I don't think that's ever done in the comics. I might be wrong. They might have done that in one issue of the comic, but I don't think Falcone was ever Selina Kyle's father. But I love how the entire scene where Batman puts his trust in Selina and sends her inside the club to see who else is corrupt. And then he gives her those lenses which record everything, and she goes inside the entire iceberg lounge and sees that all the people. She realizes
that even the DA is corrupt, and he was actually inside the bar completely drunk.
But like, it's just, I love how some of the most high level politicians are also friends with Carmine Falcone, right? And no one really knew, not even, especially not Batman, that the whole city was run by Falcone, even though like even the mayor was paid by Falcone to be the mayor. Every single thing in some way, shape or form was connected to Carmine Falcone. And I think that's the beauty of the whole film, that the city is completely corrupt, but Batman still has hope that it can change, but he doesn't realize how much corrupt the entire system is. There is a rat, because again, the one person who connects every single puzzle is the rat. And when Riddler leaves the clue of the rat, and Catwoman has only one objective, to find her missing friend, whereas Batman is trying to find out the whole situation. And when Batman questions Selina and realizes that Annika is completely disappeared, he realizes that the only person who could possibly know what's going on is Gordon. I love how the Riddler was hiding
inside the DA's car, the district attorney's car.
That was so funny to me. And he literally like put the entire bomb. It was like a collar bomb, I guess. It was a collar bomb timed to his neck. And and the best way of sending a message to every single resident in Gotham was sending that car in the middle of the funeral of the mayor. And I love that was the first, probably the only appearance of Bruce Wayne. And you see that he himself is not comfortable being Bruce Wayne. He prefers being Batman. And he rarely makes an appearance. Matt Reeves described Bruce Wayne as a rock star recluse who doesn't really come out. He prefers staying home. He prefers staying Batman. And Bruce Wayne never really is shown even to the shareholders at Wayne Enterprises,
Very
much a rock star recluse. Again, Salvatore Maroni's drug bust. Salvatore Maroni is a very iconic character in the entire Batman lore. He was in Batman Begins as well. Here, they didn't even show him, but his name was used so many times in connection with Carmine Falcone. And Falcone tried to tell Bruce Wayne that Maroni hated how much Falcone and Bruce Wayne's father, Thomas Wayne, were friends. And he was trying to change his mind because he was trying to make Bruce think that Maroni was the one behind his father and mother's death and not Falcone. But again, very much in the comics, it was actually both Martha and Bruce Wayne coming out of some theater, and some random goon just shot them both and stole their jewelry and stole their money. And that's how their Bruce Wayne's parents died.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't get to see that scene in Batman, because like I have seen enough origin story of the Batman to realize it's like Uncle Ben. Like, okay, we get it.
Yeah,
That's
exactly. That's
it's sad, but it's fine.
It's sad, but it's fine. We've seen that way too many times now. Yeah. And the thing is, they did that with Spider-Man Homecoming. They didn't show the same whole Uncle Ben story. They just moved on with the story. They didn't
for the Holland universe, Aunt May was the Uncle Ben.
Aunt May was the Uncle Ben. That was a really nice twist. I was not expecting that in No Way Home, but they did it. They did it. But again, coming back to the Batman, the Riddler's riddles, he had a letter at every single crime scene, which was addressed to the Batman, and it was basically greeting cards with a different message. So every single greeting card which was addressed to the Batman was like,
the first greeting card was, haven't a clue? Let's play a game, me and you.
The first riddle was, what does a liar do when he's dead? And the answer was, he lies still.
I think the best greeting card riddle from the entire movie, according to my personal opinion, was the one at the death site of Pete Savage, which said, I'm mad about you. Wanna know my name? And the moment you turn the next page, it is the drawing of an explosion which says, but wait, I can't tell you. It might spoil the chemistry. And at the very end of that entire greeting card, the letter says, follow the maze until you find the rat, bring him into the light, And that's where I'm at. Wow. Like, wow. I read that one and I literally was like, oh my God, I love this movie.
And then one of the riddles at the funeral was, if it can be cruel, poetic, or blind, but when it's denied, it's your violence that you may find. And the answer was justice. Such smart riddles, so well crafted, very well written film, by the way. Matt Reeves and writer Peter Craig, very, very, very well executed and written film. Like the entire screenplay, it was very smart, because you have to make sure that Batman,
like you have some movies with good writing, creative aesthetics. You have some movies with big boom explosions. I think this had both.
This had both. Not a lot of explosions apart from
but a major focus was on the creative side of it.
Yeah. And the thing is, the detective side of Batman, it's like Matt Reeves wanted the audience to figure out alongside Batman what the detective clues were, you know?
Right.
And that was,
I didn't even know he had the world's greatest detective title before I started playing the Arkham games. To me, at that point, he was just a superhero.
Yeah,
because like not many of the movies have gone into his detective.
None of the movies, not even Christian Bale ever. None of those movies ever went into the detective side of things. You know, it was very, very, very new. Again, Batman helps Coulson answer the first two riddles, but Coulson refuses to answer the third riddle, because if he gave the name of Falcone, then Falcone would kill
the DA, the district attorney's wife and kids. Even if the DA dies,
if he gave up Falcone's name, then he would put his wife and children in his wrist. And that's why he was to refuse to answer the third, and the bomb just blew. And I love that entire explosion. Batman, because you realize that Batman's suit it's explosive proof, but it's not impact proof. It means he can still take the impact and he might fall unconscious, but he won't get injured. You know? And I love that the next scene is him waking up in the middle of the police station, where every single police officer just wants to remove his mask and be like, you know what, I just want to see his face. I just want to see his face.
I think if anyone wanted to remove his mask, they would have done it right there and then only. Like, why did they put him in an ambulance? They took him to the police station. They put him on the table. Like, there was so much time gap in between. You couldn't have removed his mask then.
Yeah, they could have done that. I wonder why they did not show that scene. But anyways, I love
because movie.
Because again, movie. Right? But again, we realize that, and that's the exact time when he wakes up and he pushes all the policemen away, and he's like, "No, you can't see who I am." And then Gordon comes in and he starts screaming and shouting, and he starts telling, "Stop behaving like this." Because again, if Batman assaults a police officer, then he could get a warrant too, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
And I love that Gordon and Batman have this relationship where Gordon is the only person Batman trusts, and every single thing or every single little insider information Gordon provides to Batman. So when there was this one guy who was in the iceberg launch with a broken nose, he asks Gordon, "Who's the guy with the broken nose and why is he working in the GCP?" No, this guy works in narcotics. And he's like, he's dirty too. And then he punches Gordon just like Chris Rock, got punched by Will Smith.
I found that one funny part of the movie, like when he returns, he's like, "I thought you would pull your punches," and Batman's like, "I did."
I thought you would pull your punches. And I love that he then takes a grapple hook and goes to the very top of the police station.
Oh yeah.
And then he swings. He does this entire gliding thing.
That's the way we see, like it's a whole wingsuit. He's not like using his cape to glide. He has a different wingsuit.
Yeah, he has a different wingsuit completely.
Which makes me think, what's the point of the cape then?
Yeah, I think the cape should help him in flying. Yeah, the cape should help him in flying. Yeah.
And Edna from The Incredibles would agree with me.
Yeah. And the thing is, I love that Batman and Gordon have like an assumption, and they think maybe the Penguin is the rat, because the one clue with the Riddler gives is a rat with wings, and you're like, who can a rat with wings be, you know? And then he's like, wait, a penguin, a rat with wings, and then this entire beautiful Batmobile chase sequence. Wow, that entire
one criticism I had about this thing was most of the movie, including this scene, it was too dark.
It was
I felt like I was watching Game of Thrones, the season 8 battle again. Like, what's happening?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I took out my phone, like everyone is cheering in the amongst the audience. I'm taking my phone to record, and there's nothing coming on the screen only, on my
Yeah,
mobile screen.
yeah,
Like,
exactly. The thing is, the whole, maybe because Batman as a character is dark.
and let me assure the audience that I am against piracy. I did not record the whole movie, just that particular scene. So please don't sue me.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, the movie was supposed to be dark because Batman as a character is dark, and maybe Matt Reeves as a director truly wanted to make sure that he shows a really nighttime side of Gotham. Like Gotham at night was probably his entire idea, that he doesn't want to show a lot of scenes in the daytime. And maybe some scenes could be set in the sunset, some scenes could be set at night, but he wanted it 95% of the movie to be filmed at night, you know.
With the exception of the final battle in Dark Knight Rises, you haven't seen like many day scenes of the Batman.
Yeah, we haven't. We haven't. Yeah, I love that Batman and Gordon try to figure out who the rat is, and when they realize after that amazing iconic Batmobile sequence, when they realize that Penguin was not the informant, and then they contact the Riddler through this website called ratalada.com. And I love that he tries to communicate through the website Riddle, and he tries to figure out that the Riddle means the Thomas Wayne orphanage. And I love that this was an obvious misdirect, because if you carefully see, the clue was Thomas Wayne's orphanage. So that should technically tell you that the next victim is Bruce Wayne. So if Bruce Wayne is already as Batman, then anyone who's inside Wayne Manor becomes an ultimate target. So when Batman and Gordon were trying to investigate the orphanage and see that video, the actual misdirect was that the bomb already happened at Wayne Manor and Alfred was injured. I love that entire misdirect.
I'm glad it didn't kill off Alfred. Like, I was so scared at that time, but I'm glad it didn't kill off, because it was too soon.
Alfred. Yeah, he's a very important part of this entire movie. You know, I really feel without Alfred, it's no point having Batman. You know, and I love that Catwoman figures out who the guy was who killed Annika, and she brings the Batmobile signal and calls Batman and Gordon up, and she's like, this is the guy who killed her. And then the recording where of Annika, where she talked with Falcone. And Falcone tortured her, and Falcone just asked her, what did the mayor tell you? And when the mayor told her about the entire drug deal and how the Salvatore Maroni drug bust case was just a front so that Falcone could control the whole city, that was a really smart idea of showcasing that Falcone was the king of it all, and that every single thing in the city runs by Falcone. And I love that running this idea of one guy controlling a whole city from the shadows. That's very Code of Owls. If they ever do Code of Owls in the sequel, I would love to see that happen. But obviously,
I think this was one thing, that having all the crime under one control was having good. But now that guy's dead, like, everyone is going to war. We are going to see the rise of Penguin. We're going to see the rise of other forces. Maybe we're going to see Joker. All of them are going to fight, as different sides against one enemy. But they're not going to join together.
Yeah, they're not going to join together. I think now that the Penguin, there was a small reference which leads to me believing that the Penguin could possibly be the next villain, the next big bad, at least the next crime lord, if not the big bad, next crime lord. Yeah. And I love that Catwoman pushes the guy. She pushes the guy to his death, but Batman has a no killing rule. So he saves the guy and then goes to stop Catwoman from killing Falcone. Because again, if Falcone dies, then he'll never know what Falcone was the rat for. Why was he controlling the whole city? Why was he taking control of the whole film? And I love that the moment he arrested Falcone, the moment Falcone got arrested and brought slightly into the light, the Riddler from his apartment took a sniper and shot him in the dead. And that's when you realize that one of the riddles that the Riddler wrote was bring him into the light. Once you find the rat, bring him into the light. And the light was the tent pole light which was coming on in the middle of the street. That's when you realize that the Riddler's final plan was to expose the main guy who's running the city and then destroy the whole city, because he doesn't trust anyone in Gotham. He has been wronged by the whole city. He hates everyone. And that's why he started this whole cult of being the Riddler. And I love that they did this entire modern century thing where he comes on an Instagram live and has like 500 followers and those followers then dress up as the Riddler, and because they believe in his cause, and they all make a plan to kill the new mayor-elect, Bella O'Reilly. That was a really smart idea. I was like, okay, the Riddler has followers, and he comes on Instagram, and he also said this in a video. Thank you for the likes and shares and subscribe. I was like, okay, that's funny. That's
yeah,
nice.
that's a modern villain.
That's a modern take. And I love that once you figure out that the Riddler, he was completely unmasked, and then someone saw him coming down from the chimney and the ceiling and saw him go inside a coffee shop. And then all the policemen go to that coffee shop, and you see this one guy just trying to have his normal cup of coffee, but he's also trying to make a question mark on that coffee. So when he gets arrested, he actually smiles towards Batman. Like I love that smile of his. It was as if he wanted to get caught, you know? That was the best part. He did wanted to get caught. He wanted to get caught. Right. The Riddler wanted to get caught because his final plan was in process, because he had put 4 trucks across all the major dams of Gotham, and every single one of those trucks had a bomb. So when that bomb would explode, the dams would also break and the waters will flood the whole city. That was the main plan. So when he finds out that this was the Riddler's final plan, because again, at the Riddler's place, there was his entire diary, every single tiny little clue, the truth about the city, the truth about Thomas Wayne, the truth about Arkham. I love that he exposed Thomas and Martha Wayne, and that's when Bruce Wayne realized that his mom, Martha Wayne, was in Arkham Asylum. I love that twist. I love that his mom had a mental illness problem, and she was at Arkham, and Thomas Wayne tried to stop a journalist from finding out that his wife was in Arkham. That's why he took the help of Falcone, but he did not know that Falcone was going to kill the guy. So he just told Falcone to take care of the situation, but he did not know that taking care of the situation, in Carmine Falcone's words, is killing him. And I love that. I love that. Falcone's the easiest answer to a question is to take care of someone is to just kill them off. That's how the world, that's how Gotham runs. So I love that Batman thought his father was a good man, and at least he had this image of his father as a Boy Scout, as a good man. And that's when he realized that if his father could ask Falcone for help, then even his father was corrupt. When that thought goes into his head, I realized how much afraid Bruce Wayne really was, because every single person he truly trusts was corrupt in some way, shape, or form. Right. You know, that's the best part. And I love that Riddler just calls, he wants to see you. He wants to see you. And then they go into the Arkham Asylum confrontation room. And the way he says, Bruce Wayne. It's like...
Yeah, because I thought if there's anyone who would figure out that who Batman is, then it would be Riddler. But then at the end, he was like, he's the only one we didn't get caught. Like,
exactly. I remember when the first time I was watching, I was like, how did he figure out that he's Bruce Wayne? But then at the very end, he's like, that's the only one we didn't get. And you're like, oh, that was a great...
No, I didn't even like go into detail of how could he have known. I just thought, yeah, he could have known. Like, I mean, if you put 2 and 2 together, it seems like who in Gotham can have so much money to like go into full vigilantism?
Yeah, exactly. That's also true. And I love how in that entire confrontation scene, the Riddler just lays out an entire idea that Bruce Wayne was an orphan, but he was a rich orphan who was living in some huge tower above the city, completely safe, whereas the Riddler was an orphan with no one around him. He was in a small orphanage just like the rest of the other kids, and he was never treated fairly, whereas Bruce Wayne was just this really rich orphan. The whole city was concerned about Thomas and Martha Wayne's death, right? So when they were all sympathizing with the fact that, oh my God, what will happen to Bruce Wayne? He's such an orphan. He was a rich orphan. And I love how how the Riddler emphasized that the world focusing on a rich orphan rather than orphans without any parents rotting in an orphanage is more important, shows the true nature of Gotham at its best and at its worst. Right. You know, and I love that he completely tells Batman about how he was idolizing the Batman. He wanted to be a vigilante himself. The Riddler wanted to be a vigilante himself. They just had completely different means. And I realized that the Riddler was just a normal forensic accountant called Edward Nashton. When he says that he had this entire plan in motion because he realized that his worth in this city is to expose the ones who have wronged him, which is why he sets those and all those bombs on fire and just blasts the entire city and then like floods the city. But I think that and the third act with the entire arena fight with like 6 to 7 people, all his followers wearing that Riddler costume.
That was stealth Batman at its.
That was stealth Batman at his best. Probably my most favorite fight sequence from the movie. Him just trying to fight those guys, and you can see that those guys have shotguns and they're trying to shoot at his suit, and his suit is taking the impact. So he does feel the shot of the gun hitting him, but because his suit is bulletproof, it doesn't really hurt him that much. And there's this one moment where he's going to fall off, and then one guy's almost going to shoot him, and then just Catwoman comes up from the behind and just kicks him off and then kisses him when he's completely tired and stuff. I love that he took a adrenaline shot and put it in his legs, because again, his entire energy in fighting those bad guys, he lost his entire energy. His whole body was drained. So the moment he took that adrenaline shot, he started fighting that guy and almost broke his face. And then Gordon had to come up and tell him to stop. And when Gordon asks the guy who was impersonating as Riddler and says, "What's your name?" And he's like, "I'm Vengeance." And that's when Batman realized, oh shit, my "I'm Vengeance" line was taken too far. I love that his entire "I'm Vengeance" line was taken too far. And that's when you see that the whole city is being flooded and like everyone's being crushed underneath the debris. And that's when Batman realizes that I can't be Vengeance anymore. I need to be a symbol for the city, a symbol of hope. So when he falls down in the river, into the water, and then he removes this flare and just calls everyone inside, the flare, and just helps everyone. And then he again starts monologuing from his diary, whatever he's written, that this whole city is now in martial law is now in effect. The whole city is completely flooded. The city is scarred like me. I love that line where he says that the city is scarred. Our scars can destroy us, but if we heal from them, we can grow better. We can grow into better people and better versions of ourselves. That was, I think, the most defining line of the entire movie, because you realize that he started off something as vengeance in the start of the movie, and he ends with a symbol of hope. He starts helping all these people. Rescue helicopters come, and he starts rescuing those people. And then there's this one lady who holds his hand because she's so afraid of everything that's happening around. And then Batman gives her a look and says that it's all going to be okay. It was beautiful.
Like, they're not afraid of me anymore.
Exactly. And then when Catwoman says goodbye, and she's going to Bloodhaven. Bloodhaven again is straight from the Gotham comics. She's going to come back in the sequel. I know that for a fact, but because Bloodhaven is where Catwoman usually grows. That's one of her places. And I love the ending shot where Batman just sees Catwoman go on the other direction through his side mirror, and he just smiles and just goes into the sunset. That was just the perfect ending, perfect film, an absolute visual masterpiece. I truly love this iteration of Batman. I just want to see a sequel right now. I really want to see a sequel, because you realize that at the end of the movie, the Riddler won. The Riddler truly won. He wanted to expose the city. He exposed the city, and he drowned the whole city. And his main mission has now been accomplished. And that's when they show that entire scene of him in the Arkham Asylum crying and figuring out what to do. And then you see that there's another person in the cell, and he says,
And even in the hall, even when I was watching it in the cinema hall, I was like, should I cheer? Because I had doubts. I mean, is this Joker? Is this someone else? But at the end, I was convinced, it's Joker. But if people knew at that time that it was Joker, they would have cheered. But at that time, everyone else was trying to figure out who this guy is.
Yeah, and I love how the Joker said one riddle. Riddle me this. The less of this you have, the more its value increases. And the Riddler's like a friend. Ooh, I loved it.
So I loved it. Yeah. First of all, I'm glad to see another Batman and Joker team up. I mean, we saw the relationship of Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, Christian Bale and Heath Ledger, Ben Affleck and Jared Leto, and now here we are.
Exactly.
Robert Pattinson and
Barry Keoghan.
Who's the guy? Barry Keoghan.
Barry Keoghan. He was in Eternals.
Everyone's going to know his name in a few years.
Yeah. He was great in Eternals, by the way. He was great in Eternals. He truly was. He was one of the highlights of Eternals. So, yeah. So, you know what? Now that the whole movie's come out, we can also talk about that deleted scene of the Arkham Asylum, about the deleted scene of Barry Keoghan interrogating with Batman.
There were many like mixed opinions on this, like whether this should have been in the movie or it shouldn't have been. Personally, I think
I personally
maybe
think,
a short version of it, but yeah, it shouldn't have been because like it was
again,
just one more interrogation scene.
Yeah, but the thing is, I feel that it should not have been in the movie for one reason. The only reason is the Joker was very quick to find out who the Riddler was. He immediately said that this guy is a nobody trying to be a somebody. And when Batman asked,
Is it political?
he's like, no, it is personal. It's not political. And it's like the
I
Joker.
don't think it's weird. I don't think it's weird for him to like figure this out so quickly. He's a psychopath. He knows how psychopath operates.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I think that's why Matt Reeves cut it out of the final film, because the Joker very quickly figured out who the Riddler was. And the whole movie, at least the first 70% of the movie, is Batman trying to figure out who the Riddler is. So if one interrogation scene with the Joker could reveal everything, then what's the point of having a whole 3-hour movie of Batman figuring out who the Riddler is, right? So I think I can understand why they cut that scene out of the movie. And again, it was a great marketing tactic to release that scene after the movie was released, so that it doesn't ruin anyone's movie going experience,
Exactly.
So that was a really, really smart idea, in my opinion. So with that, we come to an end of our Batman spoiler review and spoiler discussion. But hold on, we have one exciting segment, which is the Moon Knight episode 1 and 2 discussion. Yep, you heard me right. Episode 2 came out today. As of this recording, today is Wednesday. So it did come out today.
I really like how March as a month starts off with the release of a new iteration of The Dark Knight and ends with the premiere of The Moon Knight. It truly was the month of the Knights, ladies and gentlemen, and we are now officially in Moon Knight season.
Episode 1 and 2, I just want to say, not a lot of MCU Easter eggs. It's just Oscar Isaac taking you on a brilliant ride of a lifetime. This guy, this is Oscar Isaac's third time playing a Marvel character, by the way. He played the X-Men villain N. Sabah Noor in X-Men Apocalypse, the one with James McAvoy as Professor X and Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique. And he also voiced Spider-Man 2099 in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which in my opinion and Ashmit's opinion is one of the best Spider-Man films ever made. And I just want to say he's also coming in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and Part 2. But Oscar freaking Isaac, this guy, wow, to portray a superhero with two completely different personalities is weird, but also a tough task at hand. This guy he's portraying two personalities at the same time, and he does an absolutely stellar job. That's all I want to say. He does an absolutely amazing job. It's also fun to see him in the MCU, and especially Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke has been a acting masterpiece. One of my most favorite films of his is the entire Before trilogy: Before Sunrise, Before Midnight, Before Sunset. Those are my 3 most favorite films of Ethan Hawke. Never imagined I would ever see him in the MCU, especially as a bad guy who runs a cult like David Koresh. But wow, this guy, wow, he did an amazing job. Episode 1 and 2, episode 1 ends on a stellar note. When you actually see the scene from the trailer with him in the entire bathroom sequence, it's from the first episode, and you really realize that it's 2 personalities fighting for control over one body. And it's a scary thing, because you realize that mental illness is something they're really taking into consideration, something they're giving a lot of importance in these 2 episodes and on the whole show overall. But Oscar Isaac, I just could go on and on about how amazing this guy truly is. Portraying...
No, you can.
Exactly. And the thing is, he portrays Stephen Grant and Mark Spector brilliantly. The first episode is just Stephen Grant, just a small museum gift shop owner trying to go by his day-to-day life. And he realizes that he sleepwalks, he's unable to sleep, he's having these weird nightmares. He ends up in weird places at different times because he doesn't know that there's another personality living inside his body. And that entire episode is him realizing that another personality lives inside his body. And that's why he goes to places where his mind doesn't pretend to go.
And first of all, this is the first time since WandaVision aired last year, this is the first Disney Plus TV show of Marvel that has introduced a new character as a main character. We saw Kate Bishop, but she was just a secondary character in Hawkeye. This is a new character's first solo TV show.
Yeah, exactly.
In the beginning, like, we didn't expect much. We didn't know what to see. In the earlier shows, we had a kind of sense over what we could have seen. So this was a kind of a new introduction. And one of the best things, like, a non-Marvel fan himself could be seeing this, be as excited, connect as much as us Marvel fans can.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can watch the show without watching any previous Marvel MCU movies or shows, and you'll completely be taken for a new joyride. Because again, the Egyptian undertone, it's very much Indiana Jones. It has this entire archaeological sector into it. But the first 2 episodes is 2 personalities fighting for control over one body. Because Mark Spector is a mercenary, and Stephen Grant is a normal British guy who lives with his pet goldfish in his mom's apartment and runs a gift shop. It's a very simple, normal guy. And that's when he realizes that another person lives inside of him, and he gets caught up into this war of gods, Egyptian gods fighting for control and trying to determine good over evil. You realize that it's way more complicated than it seems, because there is this one guy who's just trying to get through his normal day-to-day life, and he gets thrust into this war of Egyptian gods and cults and people with like staffs and supernatural powers. This is Marvel's first supernatural superhero. There is an entire group of Marvel supernatural superhero called Midnight Suns. It consists of Moon Knight, the Punisher, Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, Morbius, and these are the 5 main members of the Midnight Suns. And Oscar Isaac, the suit, I just want to say this, the suit, some people might like comment on it and say it's just like a toilet paper wrapping, but in if you carefully connect it with the Egyptian undertones, you realize it's connected to the mummy aspect of it all. Like the entire Khonshu outfit, it feels like an entire mummified outfit. It's like white and completely covered in mummy wrapping. That's exactly what makes his costume unique. So in episode 2, which came out today, I just want to stress this. It's 2 characters fighting for control, right? But it's also one trying to live his life and the other trying to come close with servitude. Because again, Mark Spector, he's a mercenary, but he's a mercenary working for Khonshu. Khonshu is the Egyptian god of the moon, also the Egyptian god of vengeance, which is somewhat similar to the Batman, but I think he's mainly the Egyptian god of the moon. That's why the show is called Moon Knight, because he's a knight working for Khonshu. He's Khonshu's avatar. Khonshu again is a god. He, as long as Mark Spector wears the Moon Knight costume, he's unbeatable, unstoppable, and literally nothing can kill him. That's his superpower. And he has these moon-shaped boomerangs, which are like how Batman has batarangs, right? So the boomerangs work stellar. Like, they look amazing. The entire costume design is just beautiful. It's beautiful. And Oscar Isaac, he also portrays Mr. Knight. Mr. Knight, again, same from the Moon Knight comic. Mr. Knight is another persona, another multiple personality, one of the personalities of Steven and Mark. Mr. Knight, he's a cool guy. He's like Moon Knight only, but he doesn't have the whole Moon Knight outfit. He wears like a blazer. He wears a white shirt, wears a white mask with a moon symbol on it. It's like Steven portrays Mr. Knight perfectly, because he has this funny aspect of him and he's just trying to get through his day-to-day life, you know? And Ethan Hawke, on the other hand, he worships the Egyptian god of death, or the Egyptian demoness of death, called Ammit, Ammit. She's like a crocodile face. She has like a crocodile head and a body of a lioness. Egyptian gods are weird, but I personally can connect to this because I stayed for Egypt for 4 years in my childhood. I spent most of my preschool years in Egypt. So like, I like that we, as a Marvel fan, we're going into the Egyptian side of the MCU, you know, and I really never imagined that would ever happen.
Also because every other Avenger lives in the US or has some connection to the US or is born and brought up in the US. So it's like Marvel has always been capturing stories inside the US, and then there are other worldly characters like the Guardians, Thanos, and Captain Marvel, etc., which are from completely different planets. So It's like MCU has never gone to the other side of the earth.
But again, Moon Knight is considered one of the top 200 best comic book characters of all time. I know 200 is a long list, but hey, it counts for something, right? And Moon Knight, again, we have only been shown 2 personalities till now. There are in total in the comics, if I'm not wrong, 4 personalities. But as far as the show is concerned, it has this very much of a supernatural side to it. It's dark, it's scary, and you get to see these Egyptian gods in the middle of the MCU, especially in a world where Thanos has blipped, 5 years have passed, people have just come back from the dust, and like establishing that and now working with supernatural gods is so different compared to anything Marvel has ever done, which is why I consider this show really, really unique. Like, you can watch this show without watching anything previous Marvel shows have ever done, and you would still be hooked. You will truly be hooked. And again, Oscar Isaac, brilliant performance, brilliant cinematography. You get to we also go to the pyramids in episode 3. That's exactly where episode 2 ends. So I'm really excited for what the next episode has in store for us. But we will break down the whole season of Moon Knight, including episode 3, 4, 5, and 6, which is the finale, in complete detail in episode 3, ladies and gentlemen. So thank you so much for tuning in on episode 2 of the Meta Fandom Boys. We really hope you liked what you listened, and we will see you next episode when we discuss all things Moon Knight. Thank you so much.
See you guys later.
Goodbye.